In the times that the Jewish people are living through right now, some of us might be wondering, where is God in all of this? And how can God let the Jewish people suffer all of the hatred and violence that we're seeing in the news, seemingly something new every day? There was a time when I would very much have been one of the people asking that pointed question. But then I came to a realization that changed everything for me. We are by no means the first generation of Jews to struggle with God and to question how it can be that God allows hate and violence to threaten us. We've all just read the past 2 nights during our Passover Seders. For neither once, nor twice, nor 3 times was our destruction planned. In every generation they rise against us to destroy us, and in every generation a divine power delivers us from their hands into freedom. Now, for me, this statement, in every generation, has never been just a metaphor. Literally, every generation of my family has faced stark, blatant anti-Semitism. And I'm not going to drag you through all of what my grandparents or my parents went through, because I'm sure that your grandparents and parents all went through much the same. And in our own lives, I suppose, we thought that perhaps we might be living in some Gene Roddenberry-esque golden age of enlightenment when anti-Semitism was limited to just white supremacists and maybe, this political party and that labor union, or, oh yeah, that church body, all loudly supporting the BDS movement, which has nothing to do with their core missions. But the fact of the matter is that even in the times when we've allowed ourselves to think, hey, now is a pretty good time to be a Jew, the reality is that anti-Semites have never gone away. To be sure, these days they seem to be feeling especially free to shout their hatred in the streets and in every online space. And maybe it might feel like there's been some new people jumping on the bandwagon lately, but the reality is that it's always been there. And at the same time, no matter how you slice it, the times we're living in right now seem pretty bleak to a lot of us. So what comfort can we take? The same comfort the Jews have been taking for 3,500 years, and just in time for this Shabbat, it happens to be coming from our special Torah portion for this intermediate Shabbat of Pesach. For this special Shabbat, Chol, Hamoed, Pesach, we're reading in the book of Exodus the conversation between Adonai and Moses that happened right after the whole golden calf incident. And in the portion, Moses is really worried about leading the people through the wilderness. This is another one of those situations which seems to come up quite a lot, where Moses isn't sure that he's up for the job. And this time in particular, Moses is worried that the people won't listen to him if Adonai isn't right there in person, if you will, leading the people all the way to the promised land. Adonai had just finished telling Moses that seeing what the people did with the golden calf made God realize that personally leading the people through the wilderness was a bad idea. In fact, Adonai figured that there was no way that things could end except with Adonai blasting the whole stiff-necked lot of us for being a bunch of chuckleheads. But this sent Moses into a panic. Moses is thinking, there's no way the people are going to listen to me if God's not right there the whole time. And this is what's really interesting to me. Moses is having a crisis of confidence about his credibility with the people. So what does he do? He decides that he's going to argue with Adonai about it. What kind of crazy chutzpah is that? The people are making me nervous, so I better pick a fight with God instead. So what's even crazier than Moses picking a fight with God? 2 things, actually, but one at a time. The first is that God actually listens to Moses' argument and agrees to lead the people through the wilderness. And we read in Torah that for 40 years, everywhere the people wandered in the wilderness, that God was right there, appearing as a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. The second thing is that Moses then doubles down and asks God for a favor, if you can imagine. I'm going to come back to that, but I don't want to gloss over the first thing because I think it's critically important for us today, right now, in our own disturbing times. Here we are wondering about the state of the world, and in particular about the way the world is making us feel as Jews. And maybe for some of us, it makes us question, what did we do to deserve this? The answer, by the way, is nothing. Or maybe for some of us, it makes us wonder, why does God let this happen? But I'm going to suggest that this is the wrong question to ask. I could go on at considerable length about why I think it's the wrong question, and my wife will warn you not to open that can of worms with me. So for now, let's just say that our Torah portion has a lot to say about why there's a much better question to ask. I'm going to suggest that the better question is, how is God going to respond to all of the hatred that Jews face in the world? What makes me say this? It's what our portion is teaching us. Let's keep looking to see how we know this to be true. I said a minute ago that there was a second thing that not only did Moses argue with God, but then, having won the argument, Moses turned right around and asked God for a favor. What was that favor? Moses tells God that he wants to see all of God's glory, to get a look at God's true nature. And how does God respond to this pretty insolent request? God tells Moses, listen, buddy, I'll show you the nature of my goodness, but you can't see any more than that, because no one can see my face and live. Moses doesn't even understand the implication of what he's asking for, but God is game to humor Moses, at least to the point where Moses can still live through the experience. So God sets Moses up in a crag on the mountain and passes by, shielding Moses enough so that he gets the general gist without being completely destroyed in the process. And how does Moses respond to this tiny peek at God's true nature? Moses declares the famous 13 attributes. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. Adonai, Adonai, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in kindness and good faith, keeping kindness for the 1000th generation, bearing crime, trespass, and offense, but reckoning crimes of parents to the 3rd generation. God cares about justice and wants us to take God's commandments seriously, but God cares even more about compassion and remains faithful to God's covenant with the Jewish people. How do we know? What evidence do we have that God is by no means done with the Jews? How do we know that we continue to have an important part to play in God's plan for creation? The fact that we're still here, thousands of years later, to ask that question is a pretty good clue, if you ask me. Think about it. Where are the Amorites? Where are the Hittites? Where are the Jebusites? For that matter, where are the Assyrians or the Seleucids or even the Romans? All gone, with nothing to show but some stone ruins and whatever trinkets that could be looted and carried off to the British Museum. But we're still here. Despite generations and generations of our enemies doing their worst, we're still here. How does that make any sense? I don't know about you, but I think it's miraculous. So what is Torah teaching us here? Even though Adonai is completely fed up and ticked off with the people, Moses convinces Adonai to change the plan and be more hands-on with us as we wander all through the wilderness. Then Moses presses his luck and asks to get much more up close and personal with God than any mortal has ever been. And God gives Moses as much as he can handle, if not everything that he naively asked for. Torah is teaching us that God doesn't expect us to simply obey like robots. God made us with free will, and God expects us to argue our point of view. What else is it teaching us? God wants us to follow the rules that God gave us, absolutely. But God will also treat us with compassion when we inevitably go wrong. Asking questions, pushing back, taking responsibility for the process, and owning the result is what God wants us to do. And our portion is also teaching us that even when we're not able to be at our best, being the humans that God made us to be, that God will treat us with compassion and will protect us and will remember the covenant that God made with us at Sinai. Does this mean that bad things are never going to happen? Obviously not. Bad things have happened all along, in every generation. And it sure isn't looking like they're going to stop anytime soon. But have we continued to survive as a people? Also, obviously, yes. Can we explain it? Does it make a lick of sense after everything we've been through? It would take a miracle. It would take a miracle. But even a miracle isn't enough. The Torah is teaching us this Shabbat that Adonai is doing Adonai's part, and that we, the Jewish people, have our own part as well. We have agency, we have responsibility. That agency which God has given us was given to us for a reason. We need to look out for ourselves to be sure, and we need to know and understand that our existence is not a fluke. It's not some inexplicable accident of history. We have an important part to play in bringing God's plan for the world into being. Our Jewishness matters. What we do and how we live our lives matter. We matter. So when we look at the state of the world today and we ask ourselves, is history repeating itself, or perhaps even just rhyming? Well, God forbid. But what do we do about it? The same thing we've been doing for 3,500 years. We press on, we stick stubbornly to living our lives Jewishly, and we put our faith in the compassion of Adonai and the witness of 3,500 years that show that the Jewish people have, can, and will continue to survive. Chag Pesach Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.